The chime had not even finished ringing when Draven's fist shot forward, and the whole training hall went quiet in that half-second before impact. I was standing near the observation rail, close enough to hear the crack of contact against Grace Bennett's shoulder, and close enough to see that she did not fall. My name is Kesser Vanti, and I have spent my whole life among warrior species. I have watched Talborn duelists break stone with their knuckles. I have watched Crick's war beasts tear reinforced doors off their hinges just to prove a point. None of that prepared me for what I saw next. Grace did not scream. She did not stumble back the way every instructor expected a soft, unarmored human to stumble. She rolled her shoulder once, like she was shaking off a light itch, and looked straight at Draven with eyes that had gone completely calm. That calm was the first thing that scared me. Draven was almost twice her size, bred for combat trials on a world where losing a duel meant losing your name. He had struck first, before the starting signal, because he wanted to humble the new exchange student in front of the entire class. Earth had only just been added to the Academy roster, and most of us assumed humans were included out of pity, not respect. I remember thinking, in that moment, that this fight would be over in seconds, and Grace would be the one carried out. I was wrong. She stepped forward instead of back, closing the distance Draven had opened, which broke every instinct the rest of us had been trained to follow. When something bigger hits you, you create space. You do not walk toward it. But Grace walked toward it, and Draven's second strike missed her completely, because she was no longer standing where his body expected her to be. I did not understand it then, but I understand it now. Grace was not fighting like a warrior defending pride. She was solving a problem, the way her species has always solved problems, quickly and without wasted motion. Her hand caught his wrist mid-swing. Her other hand pressed against his elbow. There was a small twist, barely visible, and Draven's own momentum carried him past her and down onto the mat. It happened so fast that half the room did not register what they had seen until it was already finished. Grace knelt beside him for exactly 1 second, checking that he was not hurt beyond his pride, and then she stood up and stepped back to her starting mark like nothing unusual had occurred. Silence held the room for 3 full seconds, then Professor Ilyana Rask, who had taught combat theory longer than most of us had been alive, walked onto the mat with her 4 eyes fixed on Grace like she was seeing a new species for the first time. "Explain what you just did," Professor Rask said. Grace shrugged, a very human gesture I had already learned to recognize. "He gave me his balance for free. I just borrowed it." A few cadets laughed nervously. I did not laugh. I was too busy noticing that Grace's shoulder was already beginning to bruise beneath her training suit, a dark shadow spreading under pale skin, and she had not even glanced down at it once. That was the moment I understood why Earth had been classified a Deathworld. It was never about the size of the humans. It was about what they carried inside them after surviving a world that never once made things easy. News of the match spread through the dormitory halls before the evening meal bell rang. By the next morning, cadets from 3 other years had crowded the upper viewing deck of the training hall, hoping to watch Grace practice, the way you might watch a controlled fire from a safe distance, curious and cautious at the same time. Draven avoided her for 2 full days. When he finally approached her again, it was not with anger. It was with something closer to respect, the kind predators reserve for something they no longer fully understand. I decided to speak with Grace myself, mostly because I wanted to know if the calm I had seen in her eyes was real, or something she had performed for the crowd. I found her in the courtyard between lessons, sitting alone under the artificial light towers, wrapping a cold compress around her shoulder, with the same steady hands she had used to end the fight. "You could have hurt him more," I said. "Everyone in that hall knew you could have." She looked up at me, and there was no pride in her expression, only a kind of tired honesty. "Where I come from, you don't finish a fight that somebody else started for fun. You finish it as fast as you can, and then you make sure it does not start again. And if it starts again?" "Then I finish it faster," she said. And there was nothing dramatic in the way she said it. It was simply a fact, the same way someone might tell you what time the sun rises. I asked her about her homeworld, about the training that produced someone so calm under an attack that would have panicked most cadets on this station. She told me about storms that could tear apart entire towns in minutes, about creatures on her planet that hunted in packs larger than our combat squads, about winters that killed the unprepared without warning or mercy. She did not tell these stories to impress me. She told them the way someone recalls ordinary weather, because for her, that danger had simply been ordinary. It was strange, hearing someone speak so plainly about a childhood spent surviving conditions the rest of us studied only in survival simulations. Most species on this station had been shaped by advantages, sharp claws, thick hides, natural venom. Grace's species had been shaped by none of that. They had been shaped by refusing to stop, generation after generation, until stopping was no longer part of who they were. 3 weeks later, the Academy held its annual proving trial, a mandatory exercise where senior cadets faced a series of controlled scenarios designed to test decision-making under real pressure. It was not a duel. It was something closer to a survival course, built to see how each species handled fear, exhaustion, and sudden danger without losing control. I was paired in the same rotation group as Grace, along with a Talborn cadet named Farron Oswell, and 2 other students I barely knew. The scenario placed us inside a simulated station corridor experiencing a total power failure, forcing us to navigate through darkness while an automated system tracked our stress responses. Farron, usually confident to the point of arrogance, began breathing hard within minutes, his claws scraping nervously against the corridor walls. The simulation was designed to feel unpredictable, with sudden sounds and shifting walls meant to disorient us, and it worked exactly as intended on most of the group. Grace moved through it like she had done this 100 times before. She counted her steps out loud, calm and steady, keeping the rest of us oriented in the dark. When one section of the simulated corridor collapsed without warning, sealing off our planned route, she did not panic or waste time complaining about the change. She simply found another way forward, testing each wall with her hands, until she located a maintenance passage the rest of us had completely missed. By the time we reached the exit point, the automated system logged her stress readings as the lowest in the entire senior class, lower even than instructors who had run the course themselves for training purposes. Professor Rask reviewed the results personally and called a full assembly the following day. I expected another lecture about combat technique, but instead she spoke about something much larger. For generations, this academy has measured strength through claws, venom, and raw power, she said, standing before the gathered cadets. We assumed those traits defined survival. Cadet Bennett has shown us something different. Her species was never given natural weapons. Instead, they were given the ability to remain steady when everything around them falls apart. That is a rarer gift than any of you realize, and it may be the most dangerous one in this entire galaxy. The room stayed quiet after she said that, quieter than I had ever heard it. I looked over at Grace, expecting pride or satisfaction on her face, but she simply looked thoughtful, almost uncomfortable with the attention. Later that evening, I found her again in the same courtyard, watching the artificial stars flicker on above the station dome. They keep calling you dangerous, I said. Does that bother you? She thought about it for a moment before answering. I'm not dangerous because I want to hurt anyone. I'm dangerous because I refuse to stop when things get hard. Those are 2 very different things, even if they look the same from the outside. I did not fully understand what she meant until months later, watching her lead an entire rescue team through a damaged section of the station during an unexpected system failure. Calm and clear-headed while alarms blared and panic spread through the corridors around her. She was not the strongest person on that station. She was not the fastest, and she certainly was not the largest. But she was the one who never stopped moving forward, no matter what stood in her way. And by the end of that year, every single cadet in the academy understood exactly why her homeworld had earned its reputation among the stars. Not because of what it could destroy, but because of what it could produce.